that there definitely is an invisible world. There really are spirits out there, and these spirits generally claim to be the ghosts of people that have died. And so once the person is convinced that the ghosts are real, then the next thing is they often believe what they say. But, the truth is, if you look around in the visible world, it's pretty obvious to everybody that has a brain that there are imposters in the real life. I got an email some time ago from a man that it was my friend's email address. It came from my friend's email address, and he said he was lost in London. He had been robbed, and he didn't have enough money to get back home. And come to find out later on that this email address had been hijacked by someone who was impersonating my friend. And this happens a lot. There are obviously people that they're not what they claim to be. And so if this can happen in the visible world, that there are imposters and people that claim to be what they're not, then why can't it happen in the invisible world as well? And that's really what the Bible says, that there are spirits in the invisible world. There are fallen angels who can easily impersonate the dead. And when they appear to you, you really can't tell that they are or they're not unless you have a point of reference that's bigger than they are. And that point of reference, to me, is the Bible. And the Bible tells me clearly who these spirits are, that they're not who they claim to be.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of Americans might say, well, I don't believe in any of this. It's all poppycock. There's no such thing as these things. But throughout history, and not just in the Bible, Steve, but you'll find in writings throughout history, not just in literature and like in novels and stuff, we have accounts of people seeing things that are supernatural. And once again, mentioning Mexico, so many people, we're here in Southern California, I know a lot of Mexicans, so many of them said they've seen like dead relatives or spirits of some sort appearing to them. And it seems very prevalent there, just like everybody knows it happens there quite often. It's just a fact of life there.
That's right.
And
that's right. It happens in Russia, too, same thing.
Yeah. So many Americans who haven't experienced things like this, any type of supernatural experience, may not understand what we're saying here, but there's been a lot of incidents throughout history and still currently happening that kind of document this, isn't there?
Yes, there definitely is. And if a person is an atheist and they don't believe in a supernatural world at all, and then all of a sudden, they encounter a spirit from the other side, then their whole life changes and they become believers. But many times, most of the time, they just become believers in what they've seen, and they're so happy that there really is something beyond this life, but they don't think critically about who it is that's speaking to them. And that's why I mentioned that, I know a lot of people do believe in the Bible. A lot of people don't believe in the Bible. I'm one that does. I do believe there's a visible world and an invisible world. Many do believe in angels, if they're out there. I believe so. But the Bible is very clear that there are fallen angels and there are holy angels. In the invisible world, there's two kinds of angels. There's good ones and there's bad ones. The bad ones were kicked out of heaven a long time ago with their leader, whose name used to be Lucifer, now it's Satan. And he's very real. His angels are real. They are also called demons in the Bible. In the book of Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible, the greatest book on prophecy, in chapter 16, verse 14, it says that right before the final battle of Armageddon, it says the spirits of devils working miracles will go forth all around the world to deceive people and fasten them in deception. And that's what the Bible says, that there are spirits of devils out there. And there are many verses that say that we should avoid any attempt to communicate with the dead because we're going to end up contacting these evil spirits.
Yeah, and you have some people in the New Age movement, they have their familiar spirits who, they're guides, they're teachers to them. I think
That's
of
right.
Shirley MacLaine in her books, Out on a Limb. Or
Out on a Limb, yes.
Fell off a limb or something.
It's out on a limb.
Yeah. I think she's fallen off it, though. And
Yes, I do too.
She, says, hey, I get into this state, this spiritual state, and these spirits appear to me. They tell me insights that nobody else knows, and they think it's cool.
That's right. And you should mention familiar spirits. It's not just Shirley MacLaine, but the people that I mentioned previously. A whole host of them. And I think I said John Edwards, but you're correct. It's John Edward, not the politician. Yeah. And then there's James Van Pry, Alison Dubois, Sylvia Brown. There's many others, and all of these are what they consider to be professional mediums. And they all have those familiar spirits, these spirit guides that direct them and that guide them. Shirley MacLaine, I don't know if you saw one of the movies that she was in some time ago where she was describing her initiation into the spirit world, and she stands on the beach with one of her gurus, and the guru tells her to look out over the ocean, to hold out her arms and to say, "I am God." And she didn't really want to say that, but finally she did it. She said, "I am God." And that's the information she got from her guru and from the spirits. And it's very significant that if you go back to the very beginning of the Bible, in the book of Genesis, when the serpent deceived Eve, his first two lies were that if she ate the fruit, she wouldn't die, and that she would be like God, knowing good and evil. That's right. So the modern mediums today who are in touch with spirits are being taught the very same doctrine that the Bible says the serpent taught Eve in the book of Genesis. And to me, that is very significant.